Agenda and the first episode of 2021. Happy New Year, happy new lockdown, unfortunately. But we're going to try and get you through it. We've got a lot of topics to discuss today. I'm Colt K, Leeds fan.
I'm Shay, the one only, you can't clone me. Happy New Year, Arsenal fan.
And James, you Manchester United fan.
Yes. So let's get into it. First topic I wanted to bring up. We're now against played. We always know that Christmas and the busy period surrounding it is a good indicator of who is going to be in relegation trouble and who is likely going to go down at the end of the season. So the first thing we want to talk about today is, at this kind of halfway stage, who, in our opinion, is going down. I've got some notes here on the teams that I think are done out here. Sheffield United goes without saying. They've now got 2 points from 17 games. It's just an embarrassing statistic. And it looks like they're going to actually overtake Derby's record, which is a record no one wants. They've got 11 points in the season. Sheffield United have 2 after 17 games. The other 2 I want to throw in there are West Brom and Fulham. West Brom, for me, deserve to go down for the way they treated Bilic. But they've brought in Allardyce, who was supposed to make them more solid at the back. And since then, they've been slapped 5-0 by Leeds, lost 4-0 to Arsenal. Their only real decent result was a draw against Liverpool, but Liverpool are in poor form at the moment. And also Fulham, I think they have improved. Out of those 3, I think they are the better team. But for me, they're not strong enough to stay up. In my opinion, it's going to be those 3. James, what do you think?
I mean, pretty much the same, if I'm being completely honest. I do think Sheffield United will get more than 11 points, though. I think they'll have a better second half to the season because I don't think you can have a worse first half. So
could get 1 point.
Yeah, but I just don't see that happening. But yeah, I look at Fulham and West Ham and I just don't see them having enough. You look at West Brom, sorry, not West Ham. You look at other teams sort of in and around there, like Brighton are in and around there, but I just think they have a bit more know-how in the league and have a better squad, really. And I think that's just what's going to see them over the line, in terms of like how close it might end up being at the bottom. I think Arsenal are solidly out of that whole relegation scrap.
Unfortunately.
So Shay can, wipe the sweat off of his forehead. But I agree. I think it's going to be those 3.
The other one I did want to mention was Burnley, but I think for me, Burnley are more solid than those 3, and they have the Premier League experience to stay up. West Brom, for me, just look absolutely shocking. 5-0 to Leeds, and then the Arsenal game, Shay, the 4-0, they made Arsenal look like Barcelona in that game. They were absolutely dreadful. Who do you think? Do you disagree with any of those, Shay?
Not really. Sheffield United have been just woeful, and they are on course to better Derby's record, which is diabolical. We're all old enough to remember Derby from 2008. They were awful. They were a charity club giving out 3 points every week, basically, and that's what Sheffield United are. I think people have figured out Sheffield United now. They figured out how to beat Chris Wilder. Some of their recruitment has been poor as well. They spent £23 million on Ryan Brewster, who I think is a good prospect, but it's unproven. They're basically done out here. They should just forfeit all their games and not play any more games. They're finished. Fulham, poor as well. What can I say? I don't think they're going to survive. West Brom, I question their sacking of Bilic because West Brom are not woeful. They're not awful. They're bad, but they're not awful. And I think Bilic deserves a little bit more time, basically. And now they brought in Allardyce, and they're still shit. So I question how they treated Bilic. I think Bilic should be given more time. And credit to Sheffield United, because even though they're woeful, they've stuck with Chris Wilder. They've stuck with him. In an era where they sack managers every 5 minutes, they've stuck with Wilder. So credit to Sheffield United, but those 3 teams are going down. Burnley, I like Sean Dyche. I think he's a good coach. I think they'll stay up. So, yeah.
The thing is with Sheffield United, they're not getting walloped every week, which I think for their fans must be pretty frustrating to see. It's always 1-0s or 2-1s. But their problem is they haven't scored goals. I think I saw they've scored 8 goals in the first 16 games this season. So on average, half a goal a game. With those kind of stats, you're going to consistently lose because if you can't put the ball in the back of the net, you're not going to win games. It's as simple as that. Defensively, I actually don't think they're that bad, but it's going forward. They've just been absolutely shocking. Haven't taken chances. And the thing for me is when I watch them play, even when they look like they're in a position to score, I don't feel confident they're going to score, which for me is a worrying sign. James, when you played them, I think you were one of the only teams you conceded twice to them. Isn't that right?
Yeah, if I remember, I think it was 2 goals. I could be wrong about that, but we didn't. To be honest, I can't. They gave us a game. I do remember they played better than I'd seen them in that game, and I thought they might actually kick on from it, but seemingly the results still haven't. So, I mean, something that I just find a bit curious and wanted to see what you guys think is we're obviously we're a bit annoyed about the Slaven Bilic sacking, and I do agree that as football fans, we like to see managers keep their jobs even when teams go through rough times. But at the same time, should Chris Wilder actually be sacked? I mean, because there's so much money in the Premier League now, which is why teams normally do have this big manager turnover. Our Sheffield had been a bit naive and not pulling the trigger and trying to stay in the division.
For me, no. I think the time to sack him has kind of passed by now. I think no matter who they get in now, they're down. And the thing is with Chris Wilder, he's got a lot of credit in the bank at that club because when he got them, they were a League One team and he's taken them to the Premier League. So he's got a lot of credit in the bank. And for me now, it's too late to sack him anyway. If you'd asked me in October, November, there might have been more of a debate. But the fact is they could get Pep and Klopp in as a double act now and they still wouldn't stay up. They're gone. So for me, they shouldn't sack him. But he deserved to be sacked. I think it's his previous accomplishments in the role that have kept him in the job. Shay, do you agree with that? Or, I mean, I know you're a fan of sticking by managers, but if you were the owners of Sheffield United, would you be looking at this now and saying it's unacceptable?
I totally agree with you. I think that ship has sailed. They have 2 points at the halfway stage, and they're so far gone now. You can get Pep Guardiola, you can bring Alex Ferguson from retirement, you can bring Alf Ramsey from his grave. They're still going down, unfortunately, for Sheffield United. I probably think that they're probably thinking, you know what, when we go down, they probably thought they have a better chance of getting back up with Chris Wilder in charge, maybe. That's probably their way of thinking, maybe. You know, if they go back down, Wilder is probably the best man to take him up. Who knows? But if they want to sack him, they should have sacked him after, I'd probably say 10 games. After 10 games, he should have gone then. But it's not too far gone, unfortunately.
But also, you've got to remember, look at the Norwich example. They were quite awful last season. They've gone down to the Championship. They stuck with Daniel Farke, and they're top of the league now in the Championship, doing quite well. So there is an example there recently of a team that could have easily sacked a manager and going down and have stuck by him and now reaping the benefits. But in this case, I don't think Sheffield United will come back next season either. I said before, I don't think they deserve to be promoted. And they're a Championship team. The personnel they have is a Championship team. But we're going to switch now to our next topic. We're going to go from one end of the table to the other. We're going to talk about, unfortunately, James's club, Man U. I will just ask the question to James first. Are you title contenders? And when I mean that, I don't mean you're at the top of the table now. I mean, can you honestly look in the mirror and say you think you're going to win the league?
Do I think we're going to win the league?
Yes.
No. Do I think that we are title contenders, though? I think you have to say we are. Just we're there or thereabouts at the halfway stage of the season. We win our game against Burnley coming up, and we're actually top of the league. Even City, if they win their 2 games in hand, we're still above them. But in terms of how we've performed this season, I think we've got a bit lucky in the fair few games. We've won games, do you know what I mean, with last-minute goals, with the one against Aston Villa the other day, a last-minute block by Bailly. So when you look at it like that, it always feels like we're on the edge of either losing a game or not getting the win. And Because of that is why I can't say we'll win the league. But I think because of the way that this year's going in terms of like all results in the league, I think we'll be there or there.
James, you're frozen, mate.
With about 8,
I will
6
just.
games to go, I reckon.
Oh, is it just there? Okay, let's go. Good.
James, say what you just said again. You just froze in the
Yeah.
middle of it.
Oh, for whereabouts was I?
Just whereabouts you're talking about how you don't think you win the league.
Yeah, so I don't think we'll win the league, but I do think that we'll probably drop off with about 8 or 6 games to go is what I think. But that's how long I reckon we'll probably stay within the conversation. Just because of how the league's going, it's so inconsistent. You can't really call who will beat who almost every week. Liverpool we think are bankers to beat West Brom and draw against them, and they drew against Southampton. Or no, they lost against Southampton as well. Do you know what I mean? It's just so hard to predict at the moment, and that's why I think we'll still be in the conversation. But I realistically don't think we'll win it.
I think when I say title contenders, I mean, can you look yourself in the mirror and say not that you think you'll definitely win it, but will you be very, very close to a serious challenge by the end of the season? And I think the reason you can't say that isn't the players, because for me, United have got a squad that can challenge for the league. For me, the reason you can't say that is Ollie. I've always said he's not an elite level manager, and he's not going to get you over the line to win a league. And I think deep down you know that, and that's why you can't say you'll win it.
The one thing that he does bring, which, for instance, other managers don't, he's been there as a player. So he knows how to get over the line as a player. Whether or not he can then... Yeah, but Frank Lampard's not been in a title chase. So you can't say that. Do you know what I mean? If we get to that situation and we are there, can Ollie give that experience onto the players as a manager? And I at the same time, you're saying it's not the players. I think a lot of it is the players. Do we have enough leaders in that team to get us through a situation like that? When you look at Leicester, when they ended up winning the league, there were leaders in that team. Morgan, Huth, Schmeichel. Do you know what I mean? There were voices. Look at City's, best teams over the past few years. You had Company in there. Like, it's so obvious to see how they've declined since he's left, because he was a massive voice. And then Delph apparently was a big voice in the City dressing room, and he left as well. And you just see how they've had a bit of a decline since. And Liverpool, as we know, have Henderson, sort of Milner. Van Dijk is a leader, I suppose, of sorts. Might not necessarily look like he speaks as much on the pitch, so to speak, but leads by example. And the only person I realistically feel I can say that at United is Bruno. Like, I can't think of another player really where I feel that confidence.
It is a good point. Shay, you're neutral in this. What do you think? Do you think, honestly, obviously United have got the chance to go top if they beat Burnley now after Liverpool's loss. Do you think United could be lifting the trophy come next May?
I don't think they will, but I think they've done extremely well to be in this position at this stage of the season. I think when people spoke about this year back in August, I don't think many people had Man United to be in this position at this stage. So they've done well to get to this position. I do question, though, if United have the players who they can trust to get them over the line, basically, to keep this up. Because Bruno is playing really well, but Man U are always 1 or 2 mistakes away from not winning games or losing games. Like they look a little bit shaky at times. But fair play to them. They're having many times this year, especially away from home. They'd be brilliant away from Old Trafford. They must love playing away from home. They must hate Old Trafford. So they'd be really, really good on the road. But I just don't think they've got enough to get over that. I think Liverpool will beat them to the title, but I think they've done well to be in this position. I just don't think they've got enough stamina to maintain this challenge. Let's say Bruno gets injured tomorrow. I think it'll be all over, But they have done well. They are in the title race at the moment. Yes, they are. But I don't think they'll get over the line. But fair play to Ollie for getting them to this position so far, and fair play to Bruno. But we'll see what happens. But I don't think they'll win it. But they definitely are in the title race, basically.
Well, the reason why I say you've got to be very careful of who you label title contenders is so far this season, we've had Chelsea and Spurs. So only a couple of months ago, people were talking about title contenders. And you've seen both of them. I mean, Chelsea definitely fall apart. Spurs have lost form. They beat Leeds last week. But they've completely lost form. as well. So you have to remember that in a few weeks we could be saying the same about Man United, and because of that, I've got the next fixtures here. They've got the next 5 games for United are Burnley, Liverpool, Sheffield United, Fulham, Arsenal. Now, Burnley, Sheffield United and Fulham, anything less than 9 points in those games, I think for me, rules them out as title contenders, because those teams you have to be beating if you want to win the title. Liverpool and Arsenal, 4 points from those games as well. If they can draw against Liverpool and beat Arsenal, then I think we can sit there and say they could win the league. That for me, because by that point you'd be taken up to I think that'd be mid-February, maybe start of February. You'll be over halfway through the season. If they can only drop 2 points out those next 5 games, you have to sit there and say that they are serious title contenders. But until they do that, I don't think you can quite say that they're yet, because United haven't even looked like winning a title in 7 years now. And like I said, we've been too quick to say about Spurs and Chelsea that they're in a title race, and they're just falling apart.
I still think Spurs are, though. I know that, they've dropped off a little bit, but I still think they're in contention. I agree Chelsea have sort of bossed it a bit, and they just seem to really lack an identity at the moment. And it's almost like Lampard doesn't know how to play and what his best 11 is, which is, I suppose that's, if you're a Chelsea fan, that's the worry for them. But I don't know, Spurs, Mourinho knows his best team. And they, on their day, they can beat anyone. As we've seen, they've beaten City quite comfortably earlier on in the year, beat Arsenal quite comfortably, beat United 6-1. So it's for them, it's just keeping that consistency. And like I said, like you're talking about United there, conceivably, you're saying 13 points is what they should be getting from those next 5 games for you to consider them as title contenders. But with the way, like I said, the season's been going, teams like City and Liverpool might end up dropping points against, I don't know, against like a Leeds or against a Wolves or against a Burnley or a Newcastle. That's just how mental the season's going. So I do agree, kind of see how the next 5 games go, but I think it's just very hard to call really at the moment, like where anyone will be in the next 5 games.
Well, the reason I said they weren't is if we go to Shay now, like Shay said, he doesn't think United will win the league. Shay, who do you think will win the league, and why won't United win it? Because for me, they're not good title contenders because of Ollie.
I think Liverpool will win the Premier League. I don't think they'll run away with it, but I think they'll win it for the simple fact that Liverpool are better at beating the teams they should beat, basically. Man U beat the teams they should beat, but Man U are always a banana peel away from, unfortunately, taking an L or dropping points, basically. I mean, for example, we're awful. We are terrible, basically. We are dreadful. We went to Anfield and got slapped. And we were awful at Old Trafford as well. But for some reason, Paul Pogba gives away a penalty and we come away with 3 points. But we were terrible. We were dreadful.
I thought you played brilliantly that game.
Yeah, I distinctly remember you saying how Arsenal were back. Arteta's was apparently the best thing since sliced bread.
And they dominated us. I remember them using the word dominated.
Yeah. Partey bullied you. That was another one.
And Elneny.
No, in all look, at the end of the day, we were dreadful that day. We weren't good. And if Paul Pogba didn't give away that penalty, we walk out there with a draw. We were dreadful. And I just think it's games like that where United sort of lack the killer edge, man, that killer cut on the edge. And Liverpool have it. They've got it. So yeah. I think they'll win it. I just think Man United need a couple more players in there. Like 1 or 2 more players in there, maybe. But they need to get rid of some of that deadwood in that squad, especially in that midfield. So, yeah, we'll see.
Speaking, just because you brought up your club there, we've obviously just seen that they've applied for £120 million loan from the government. And this fund is to help struggling businesses during the coronavirus pandemic. And this scum club that Shay defends on a weekly basis, the club that I quite rightly laugh at for doing stuff like this isn't a joking matter. £120 million they've asked as a loan to stay afloat, And then in the summer, they gave Willian a 3-year contract and 200 grand a year. They bought Partey for 45 million. Don't know what his wages are, but they're going to be in the hundreds of thousands. They're paying a player in Ozil who doesn't play 350 grand a week. And then they have a nerve to ask for 120 million. Fuck off, man. Fuck right off. This right here is why I cannot stand that club. They are everything wrong with modern football. It's a disgrace. How on earth can that look? I don't know if it's been approved or they've applied for it. But either way, the pure cheek of applying for it is just absolutely disgraceful. Shay, defend it. I want to hear some bullshit to defend it because I'll be amazed.
So basically, I don't know too much of the ins and outs, but from what I'm reading, this is poor by the football club. Yeah, again, terrible PR. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Hello.
Yeah, now I can hear.
Start again. Yeah, start
Can you
again.
hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
He can't hear us.
Cole, can you hear me?
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
guys can, yeah. It sounds like it's breaking up. You guys can hear me now, yeah. No, in all honesty, very, very poor by the football club. I'm very disappointed today. It's very embarrassing, especially in a period where genuine people, working class people, are struggling. And unfortunately, the club has gone and done another red flag, basically. They waved the red flag. No football club at Premier League level should be applying for any loans from the government, especially one that turns over millions of pounds a year, basically, a month, a week. It's very, very poor. And if the club were decent, they would come out and say, you know what, we basically got it wrong. Just like Liverpool did and Spurs did with the furlough thing. It's very, very poor. But I'm not surprised, you see, because the Arsenal board are unfortunately they're very scummy. The Arsenal board are scummy people. So you know what can I say? You know, typical. So it's very bad, but I'm not surprised. You guys aren't surprised, but the board are very scummy. This is a bad move by the football club. Very, very bad move.
I mean, the only thing I want to ask about it is I know that you shared that sort of post in our group about it, and that was from the Bleacher Report, if I saw that correctly.
Yeah.
Have you actually seen it yet on in my opinion, an official source like Sky or BBC or something like that? Because I haven't.
Let me have a look on Sky now, because normally Sky will be pretty quick in breaking that news.
Just to know how official this actually is before we throw Arsenal under the bus. I do want to give them benefit of the doubt here, because
it's not on Sky yet, but obviously we'll keep an eye on it, and we will post it on the Football Shop Facebook page if it does become official. But for me, it does strike me as the kind of thing Arsenal would do.
Well, whether or not Arsenal do it, what will infuriate me more than anything is if essentially the government approves it and does give them the loan, yet teams like Wigan went into administration, Bury, I think it was, went out of business. Do you know what I mean? A club that's been in football, like an established football club for about 100 years or so, maybe more, I can't remember. And they got dissolved completely. Where was the government bailout then? Do you know what I mean?
It's ridiculous. There's no justification for it. They've made people redundant already, so they can't even say, it's to save jobs, because in Arsenal, they just make more people redundant. And if the government approves it, then I'm going to put in a claim for a grant for a Bugatti Veyron, because obviously they're giving people whatever the fuck they want anyway. So I will ask for a Bugatti Veyron, because Arsenal are allowed to ask whatever the fuck they want anyway. But moving on to kind of the main topic this week. It's not an ambiguous one. It's not related to football as it sits now. It's a philosophy kind of debate. Shay has always been very vocal. He said in our first podcast that to him, he doesn't care if football is boring. He would watch 1-0 boring wins every week if it meant Arsenal won a title, which I get. But the question is, should football be entertaining, or is winning the be or end all? Is winning trophies the be or and end all? So can you measure success in other ways apart from winning, apart from trophies? Shay, I know what your thoughts are, but just highlight them so we can kick off the debate on it.
So, look, there are other ways to highlight success. depending on what club you're talking about, because obviously not every club can win trophies, basically. For me, I want to win, regardless. If, as a fan, if I'm investing into a football club, if I'm buying into the brand, the actual philosophy, I'm investing my money, going to sit in a stadium, I want to win, regardless. Obviously, obviously winning with style is more entertaining. It looks better, but nobody remembers people who play well and win nothing. So for me, it's about winning. Winning is the be-all and end-all. Once you start winning, then you start talking about winning with style. But get winning first. The first thing to do is to win. That's what I would say.
That statement there, though, you just said, is no one remembers teams playing well and not winning. Holland, 1970s. They got to 2 World Cup finals, didn't win either of them, but 30, 40 years later, they are the team that everyone still speaks about in terms of how they played football, and their philosophy, the total football thing, still carries through to this day. And let me ask you as well, the 2 teams who won those World Cups, who were they?
74 was West Germany, 78 was Argentina.
How many, now you know that because you, how many street know that? They will guarantee you people remember the Holland team that didn't win rather than the teams that actually did win those.
So examples of teams not doing too well and actually getting relegated from the Premier League in recent history that I can think of are Norwich and Blackpool a fair few years back. And yes, they got relegated, but everyone did actually sort of acknowledge and admire the way that they played and stuck to their guns because it was entertaining at the end of the day. They went, they didn't really back down from many teams and they stuck to their style of football that they wanted to play. So yeah, when you talk about, a style of football and making it exciting and people remembering it, there's no reason really that I should remember Blackpool, but I do because they were great entertainment the year that they were in the Premier League.
I mean, that was also because of the manager and his press conferences. I still think they're one of the best things that's happened to the Premier League. Ian Holloway's press conferences and interviews after was just absolute gold.
But the thing is, if you ask a Dutchman, would you swap that great football for one of those 2 World Cups or the World Cup in 2010? Most of them would say, yes, we want that World Cup. Most of them would swap. Yes, they want to play well, but they would have swapped those 2 finals losses and that good football for a World Cup. They would have, 100%.
The thing is, though, with that, right, that Dutch team that got to the final in 2010, I'm glad they didn't win it because at the end of the day, their style of football in that World Cup was just to fucking kick everyone. And if they hadn't won it, they wouldn't have gone about it the right way. And it would have been tainted to a lot of people. And I bet you a lot of Dutch fans who enjoyed the 70s style of play would have hated it as well. To our final topic of the show. It's one that really has gathered pace over the Christmas period. Frank Lampard. Basically, stay or go. I've got some facts here for you. For me, he's got to go. Since 12th of December, he's got 4 points. So this entire Christmas New Year period, he's taken 4 points from those games. They're 9th. They spent over 200 million. And for me, when you look at the players he's bought, who has started well? Who has looked good? Ziyech, to be fair, when I've seen him, he does look quality, but he's had his injury issues. Havertz, for me, he's still young, so he could prove me wrong, looks far too lightweight for the... Timo Werner, who I thought do very well, has looked absolutely win. One of the goals, he actually stopped going in over the line. He literally saved the goal for us. And Thiago Silva, who, for me, actually did shore up the defence initially, he's starting to look his age. He really is. The league is starting to look a bit too quick for him. So when you put all those things together, it adds up to a P45. Shay, I know you got for the man.
My thoughts, yeah. So, I mean, for me, I said at the start of the season, Chelsea spent very well. they spent in a variety of areas, but I thought Lampard wasn't the man to take the club forward. I don't think he was experienced enough to deal with these players. For me, he's on borrowed time. He's on thin ice right now. When I look at the game against us, if you lose against Arsenal, you're shit basically right now. And he got absolutely slapped by us. A team that had one game in that a team that I think that was our first win in 7-8 weeks in the Premier League. Something ridiculous. And Chelsea look awful. They look absolutely dreadful. They lost at Wolves, lost at Everton, lost at Arsenal. They look dreadful. And also as well, Timo Werner, big red flag. You have a guy who's, known for being a goal scorer, and he looks lost. I mean, I had him to be the flop of the Premier League season back in August, but I didn't think he'd be this bad. And for me,
well, he keeps playing him on the wing. Lampard keeps playing him on the wing, doesn't he? Which I don't get at all.
Really weird.
He's a centre forward. You scored to sign goals, and he keeps being shifted out to the left. And James, I wanted to say to you as well. Do you agree with me when I say the only reason Lampard is still there is because he's a Chelsea legend?
Yes and no. Yes, I think that plays a massive part in it, and it's definitely a huge factor of why he's probably still there. But at the same time, the reason I say no is, are Chelsea going down a different route by the fact that they signed him in the first place? Do you know what I mean? Because when they signed Van Lampard and put all this emphasis on youth, there must have been some sort of thought process there, knowing, from the hierarchy, knowing that it's not going to be plain sailing. Do you know what I mean? So for a few years, really, there wasn't going to be this guaranteed success that they sort of have had in the past. So is there this idea and this plan to basically start to build something and have longevity to a Chelsea side, which, if that's the case, then I can understand why he's still there and why they're giving him time. Because, for the whole of the first season, didn't get any transfers. When and he still managed to get top 4, and they're still in the Champions League right now. This season, obviously, he did spend massively, but then when you factor into that, they lost Hazard, and I think Morata, his sale went through at the start of this season. When you add those two sales together, that was basically the 200 million right there. So in terms of their net spend, I don't actually think they've realistically spent too much. Do you know what I mean?
The thing is with
if you're
that,
going to look at it like that.
The thing is with that, when we talk about net spend and all that bollocks, we're not fucking accountants. We're not here to balance the books. We're here to talk about what he does on the pitch. And the fact is, his excuse of last season of they're on a transfer ban has gone. He was backed in the summer. Whether it's net spend or not, players in my opinion, not be sitting in Arsenal, because rightly so, because Arsenal have been in shambles. They're in a relegation battle up until they've strung these wins together. They are now 3 points below Chelsea. Leeds we are the value. Lampard is on borrowed time, and for me, you're saying they're going down a different route on the basis of what managerial credentials does Frank Lampard have? People bang on about this job he did at Derby. He took Derby from.
Mate, don't get me wrong. I completely agree. You're saying aren't there, non-existent, but then at the same time, I suppose because being a United supporter and we brought in Solskjaer, I make quite a few comparisons. And I'm not saying we're out of our a tough period, but the start of Solskjaer's reign compared to how we're doing now, I feel much better about us now. And he was given 2 years' time. Do you know what I mean? And I do feel we're in a much better place at United. But I feel we're going in the right direction. I think our transfer sort of policy now. I feel like we're looking at the right sort of players to bring in. talented players like Diallo, who we just bought from Atalanta. Looking at players like Jadon Sancho, bought in Wan-Bissaka, just to give a few examples. But I don't know if Frank Lampard at that time will the same thing happen. That's the thing. It's an unknown commodity.
Would you sack him now? And if not, what would need to be the result at the end of the season for you to keep him on? What would he need to achieve by the end of the season?
I wouldn't sack him. I would probably, bearing that in mind, would probably give it another 2 months. And at that point, if there's really, because right now my biggest story, if I were a Chelsea fan, is, like I said, I think I said it earlier on in the podcast, there's no identity there. They don't know their best starting 11, don't know the best way of playing, and it's kind of painful to watch at the moment. So if he can't figure that out soon, then I think he has to go, because at that moment, it's just, you're not going anywhere. You're literally just not going anywhere as a club, and you're better off bringing in a manager. The thing is, I think as well, is Tuchel's just become available from PSG, hasn't it? I think Lucien Favre became available from Dortmund. So there are decent managers out there at the moment, and we want to have Chelsea are with their managers, and turn around, and they always want those top class ones. Allegri, I think, still available as well. Do you know what I mean? It's
and the thing is,
is that start getting it together. Otherwise, he's got to go.
Shay, that's what I was just going to go to you then, because I know you're good. I'm not going to sit around and ask you if he's going to go, because I know what the answer is going to be. I know you think he should go, but if you were the Chelsea board, would you let him go immediately now and get in a Tuchel or an Allegri? What's your preference for who replaces him?
So before I answer that, we have to remember Frank was never supposed to get that job. Chelsea had a transfer ban. No top manager wanted the job. That job with no transfers coming in. So the board panicked and said, okay, let's offer Frank the job. Frank will take the job. And of course he would. He was at Derby. In terms of if I get rid of him now, I would. Yes, I would. 100%. I think he's had enough time. I think Chelsea have played enough teams in the league to know where they are about roughly. They got beaten by Liverpool comfortably. They got beaten by City comfortably. They got slapped by a very, very poor Arsenal side who are facing relegation at that time. And we've all seen enough now. We've seen enough. So I will get rid of him now. And I will probably get in, who's about Tuchel, Allegri. I probably go for, they need someone that is to come in and not be afraid to ruffle some feathers. Come in and say, look, you're playing, you're not playing. It's coming to get things. So I will probably go for, I will go for an Allegri, to be honest. But the question is, I don't think the Chelsea board will sack him now. I think they'll give him another 5 or 6 games, maybe. But I will get in Allegri. But I don't think they'll sack him now.
Well, it's an interesting point you made there in terms of him getting that job, because they were on a transfer ban. No one else wanted it. For you then, did he get it too soon? And when I say that is, if you look at the job Gerrard is doing at Rangers, when Klopp goes, I honestly believe Gerrard is going to get that Liverpool
No, he will get that job. Yeah, absolutely.
But by then, I think Klopp is going to be there another 4 or 5 years. By then, Gerrard is already achieving success, because he's going to win the league title in Scotland this season, finally take it back off Celtic, sorry. That's what he was brought in the job to do. Another 3-4 years of doing that, then he's going to be ready for that big job. Whereas Lampard, as we said, he had one season with Derby where he failed, and he was brought in because he's a legend and no one else wanted the job. So do you feel a bit sorry for him in the sense that he might be the right man just at the wrong time?
Frank was asked that, and he said the reason why he took it is because he didn't know if this opportunity will come again, you see. So I feel the job has come too early for him, basically. But I don't blame him for taking that job, because it's basically a massive step up. But I do think the job came too early. I think it's too big for him. I think he should have gone to a team like a Bournemouth or something like that, or maybe go abroad, go and manage like a Lille or Schalke, someone, and then work your way up. Going from Derby to Chelsea is a huge jump, and Gerrard is doing the right thing. You go to Rangers, go to the SPL. You get used to winning games every week, even though they're playing tin can teams. Just get used to winning games, do something there, and then progress. Lampard, it came too early for me. So yeah.
And the thing is with Gerrard, you have to say, I have said a lot about the Scottish League because, in my opinion, it is Championship standard. It's a poor league. But for him to go there and he's going to take the title of Celtic, who've won it 9 years in a row, that is a massive achievement. It really is.
Mate, I'm sorry. I'm not going to let you. I'm not going to let you say that. Brendan Rodgers won the treble or whatever 3 years in a row, and you disregarded that completely.
No. Because he's at Celtic, who Rangers got dissolved.
But it doesn't matter, mate. You're going to slag off the Scottish League the way that you do. You can't flip-flop.
Brendan Rodgers
I'm not
had no competition for years. No competition whatsoever. The only competitive club in Scotland to Celtic was Rangers, and then they completely fell away with what happened to them. Gerrard has got in when they're still a long way behind Celtic and has brought them up to that level. I'm not saying it's a good level, so I still think it's Championship standard, but a lot of credit has got to go to him for taking that league back from Celtic. It really does. And that's my point. And when I say he's cutting his teeth there and learning how to win, whereas Lampard never did that. And that's why he's failing now.
I agree with you that I think Lampard should have had more time and he got the Chelsea job too early. But I think you're... I don't know why. I think it's more the Brendan Rodgers thing. I feel like you're doing... Because I know that you said it in a previous podcast. I think you're doing such a disservice to him by saying that Gerrard's doing such a good job in Scotland. Like, regardless if he was at Celtic, mate, he won a treble 3 years in a row. Do you know what I mean?
Who is he beating, though? Who's beating some Scottish pub teams? I'm sorry, James, look at yourself in the mirror, right, and ask yourself this. If you were in charge of Celtic during those years, would you have won the league managing them?
I probably would have won the league. I don't deny
There you go. Yeah, point proven.
Yeah, but all Steven Gerrard basically has to do with what you're saying is the only team he has to beat is Celtic. That's literally the only team.
Yes.
So
that's an improvement.
I don't know. I just think you're being so harsh on one manager compared to another there.
Well, what I'm saying is, it's harder to win it's harder to win a two-team league than it is a one-team league, which is what it was when Rodgers was there.
I don't know. I still think to still do what he did is a much bigger achievement than what Gerrard's done.
To be fair, I do see what a quote is saying, because when Rodgers took over Celtic, Rangers were nowhere near to be seen. Rangers were like, what, second division or something? Or they were like...
I think they were in the division, but they were nowhere near Celtic.
Exactly. So, but Gerrard taking Rangers from a team that hadn't won a title for 9 years to beat a Celtic team that comfortably was winning every year with a worse team than Rangers, for me is big, because Steven Gerrard is taking a team which hasn't won nothing for a while and has basically shifted the power balance, basically. Rodgers took over a Celtic team that was comfortably going to win everything. Rangers,
no, but they weren't, though. Yeah. That's the thing. They were winning the league pretty much comfortably every year, but they weren't winning trebles every year.
Yeah.
Who did they beat, though? Who did they beat in these treble seasons? Fucking Motherwell and Hearts.
I don't pay attention to that league. But he was still doing something they'd never done before.
Yeah, but they hadn't done it before because before they had Rangers competing with them. That's my point. They had no one competing with them. I could go manage.
Mate, they haven't had anyone compete with them for about 50 years
trebles up there and fucking... They're in La La Land, man. The point I'm making is Gerrard has done... I'm not saying he's done an amazing job, but I think you can see the progression he's made with the team, and that is why he's going to get the Liverpool job. And when he does, I think he will do a much better job than the one Lampard's doing at Chelsea, because of the time it takes.
But again, what you've got to look at there is what job is Steven Gerrard going into at Liverpool compared to the one Lampard's going into at Chelsea. Lampard has gone into one at Chelsea that wasn't in a great situation, and we knew it wasn't. Gerrard will probably go into it at the end of the Klopp era, which is the best period they've had in fucking years.
That is a fair point. He's going to go into an easier job. I will accept that. But ultimately, Lampard, like going back to the Lampard point, like me and Shay have said to you, Lampard, the first season was a write-off, and I think most Chelsea fans would agree with that. But now he's been backed, and it's looking poor. 9th at this stage of the season with that squad is poor. Shay, you were Arteta out after the Burnley game, weren't you? When you lost 1-0 to Burnley.
Based on being 15, that is a sackable offence. 15th
There you
at
go.
the season was sackable offence, yes.
And if you apply that to Chelsea, the position Chelsea are in a minute is a sackable offence.
Yes, it is. Spot on. Correct.
But look, that's it. We've had enough talking about the pub league, and we're actually all done for the first Football Shock episode of 2021.